Ready, Nora? Come on. Come on, Nora, baby girl. Let's go for a run. Let's go for a run. Whew. You know, there's nothing worse than when you're trying to run and get into running and you just feel like you can't breathe. You can't get enough oxygen in. And if you keep going, you start to feel a little lightheaded and dizzy and you just sort of feel defeated. So today, we're gonna fix that. We're gonna talk about how to run while breathing without getting tired, how you can kind of keep yourself going from the beginning to the end. And it's all about implementing some, really actually easy breathing strategies that will really kind of change the game here for you. That's a hope. And it's what a lot of runners do and they learn, but we're just gonna get you through that hump. And the first thing we want to understand is that when we breathe in oxygen, and when we breathe out carbon dioxide. And our body likes to stay balanced, as in all things. And what happens is that when we start running, it's easy to get going too fast, and then we start to breathe in a way that causes some sort of hyperventilation. And when we hyperventilate, we start rapidly decreasing our body's carbon dioxide levels, which really contributes to that dizziness. And it does that because when we rapidly breathe out more CO2 than we can breathe oxygen back in, it literally starts to squeeze our blood vessels and prevent blood from getting to useful places like our brain. So we need to think about how we start running in a way that changes that. And that's what I'm gonna talk about next. Now, before we get into those specific breathing patterns, there's another really important thing to know, is that breathing is a muscular and a mechanical thing that can be trained and improved. And if I were to get you squatting, because runners' strength training is just as important as anything else, right? I wouldn't have you squat the absolute heaviest weight first time you start. It's just too much load, it's too much of a shock to the system, and it doesn't feel very good. So we need to ease our way into things so that we can start to work on the musculature of breathing and we can get our diaphragm more active. Most of the time when we sit during the day or we're not very active, we don't, Nora just kicks dirt in my face. Most of the time when we're breathing during the day, we don't have to work that hard. We don't need that much of our lungs. So we only tend to breathe kind of from the top up into our chest. We're sitting, we're a little slumped, so our diaphragm, our belly isn't really that active. But as soon as I'm upright and I start going forward, all of a sudden I've increased the oxygen demands significantly in my body. So my lungs, like a giant billows, have to start pumping way bigger. And all of a sudden, I have to get that diaphragm pulling down and really working. But not only that, I have to get all my intercostal muscles in between my ribs, helping expand my rib cage and contract my rib cage. And then I'm just trying to improve that mobility. And an interesting thing, when runners go to altitude, it's not just the thin air that makes it difficult because they don't have enough red blood cells produced yet to pick up the thinner oxygen. It's actually the mechanical part too. They get fatigued having to breathe longer and harder than they would when the air is really thick and rich. So it's kind of the same for you. If you're just really learning to breathe as a new runner, it's almost like an experienced runner going to altitude where they have to breathe deep into that belly and exhale. And that's what I'm gonna get into next. I'm gonna share 3 breathing patterns that can help you through any type of run and any type of intensity level. All right, isn't this a nice view? So, first breathing pattern is going to be a slow in, slow out. And the best way to think about that is to breathe in for 4 to 6 steps and breathe out for 4 to 6 steps, back and forth. So notice that I can't run very fast this way, so it really forces me to run a little bit slower, and it keeps that, you know, oxygen CO2 balance that, you know, we're looking for. Notice that as I did that example, I deliberately breathed in and out through my nose, because that really helps in this situation a lot. It really kind of forces me to breathe into my belly, into my diaphragm more, which is really great. So that's first breathing pattern. Slow in, slow out. If you can, breathe through your nose. Next, I'm gonna get into the next one. Come on, baby. So our next breathing pattern is going to be a fast in and slow out breathing. And this is gonna be your multi-tool. You'll probably use this the most in most situations. It's good for those medium efforts and at the end run as I start to fatigue. So I might inhale for 2 steps, exhale for 4. Inhale for 2, exhale for 4. And as I start going up this hill, I'm gonna wanna suck that oxygen in a little quicker, still keeping those full breaths into my belly. That's so important. And then that longer exhale is gonna prevent me from hyperventilating and depleting those CO2 levels in my body. Great for doing tempo work, race pace work, and probably the pattern you should have if you are attempting a race one day, or, you know, you're just getting past your warm-up and into the meat of your run. Come on, Nora, baby girl, come on, come on. Now, the final breathing pattern is fast in, fast out. And that's when you're starting to run harder like I am right now. And that's gonna be 2 in, 2 out. 2 in, 2 out. But you wanna make sure that even while you're breathing this faster pattern, that you're not rushing into it. You've progressed in through the other breathing patterns, and you're still getting those full breaths into your belly. In fact, if you start breathing this way and your shoulders are tense and you're starting to get a little that nervous and tingly sensation, you know you're breathing incorrectly. So you want to slow things down, get those deeper exhales, and that's going to make sure that you're really rebalancing yourself as you go back and forth. But this is great for shorter intervals. This is great for the end of a race, being locked in when you're just trying to stay on some guy's shoulder, right? Because we're gonna race someday, right? And get ourselves in that way. But I don't want to stay here that long, because this breathing pattern means I'm running harder. And when I'm running harder, I can't necessarily run that fast for forever. So don't beat yourself up if you can only sustain this for a few minutes at first. That's totally okay. You want to slow things down, back things off to those smoother breathing patterns. Perhaps the fast in, slow out, or the slow in, slow out. You know, running is really awesome. It can be this really restorative, relaxing thing, but it can't be that if the breathing's a little off. I can't really enjoy views in nature and trails like this when I feel like I'm dying all the time. So I want to bring intention to every run. I want to start thinking about that breathing from the first step all the way to the end. And yeah, I can let myself zone out a little bit, but it's a really nice way to keep myself in the game. You'll notice as soon as you start to get panicked, dollars to donuts, you've gotten a little off your breathing rhythm. Get back in your breathing rhythm, and you'll get right back in the game. Now, we're just really scratching the surface here on breathing tips and how to do it. I go much more specifically into how to breathe while training, different training runs, and even while racing too. And that's in the next video. That's gonna be right over here. So I'm gonna keep running, guys, but keep breathing, keep running happy. I'll see you in that next video. Cheers, guys.